The Lord be with you. Today is Wednesday in Holy Week, and the Gospel tells of the betrayal of Jesus. John's Gospel, chapter 13, beginning at verse 21. After saying this, Jesus was troubled in spirit and declared, "Very truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me." The disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he was speaking. One of his disciples, the one whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him. Simon Peter therefore motioned to him to ask Jesus of whom he was speaking. So while reclining next to Jesus, he asked him, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus answered, "It is the one to whom I give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish." So when he had dipped the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas, son of Simon Iscariot. After he received the piece of bread, Satan entered into him. Jesus said to him, "Do quickly what you are going to do." Now no one at the table knew why he said this to him. Some thought that because Judas had the common purse, Jesus was telling him, "Buy what we need for the festival," or that he should give something to the poor. So after receiving the piece of bread, Judas immediately went out, and it was night. When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him at once." For the Gospel of the Lord. This Gospel reading is a reading of the prediction of the betrayal of Jesus by Judas. It seems to me that Holy Week has some high points and some low points. Palm Sunday, the entry of Jesus into Jerusalem. Easter Sunday, the triumph of the resurrection. And I think of Tuesday, Easter Tuesday, the renewal of ordination and baptismal vows for the faithful. High points. And there are low points. I think of Good Friday, Holy Saturday, being dead in the tomb. But in my view, this particular Gospel reading on Easter Wednesday is the low point of the low points. Jesus was troubled. It says he was disturbed in his spirit. The spirit, the pneuma, is the seat of emotion. We know what it's like to be troubled in our spirit. It concerns the betrayer or the traitor. The deepest wounds that we bear are often those wounds that arise from our betrayals. The deepest shame that we carry in our life has usually got to do with those we have betrayed at times, sometimes unthinkingly. There is a beautiful background text to this Gospel from Psalm 41, verse 10. "Even my bosom friend, in whom I trusted, who ate of my bread, has lifted the heel against me." And when Jesus is asked, "Lord, who is it?" he says, "The one to whom I give this piece of bread after I have dipped it in the dish." It's an echo of the intimacy of that close friend who becomes the betrayer. The remarkable Jean Vanier, in his book on Meditations on John's Gospel, has a beautiful quote about Judas the betrayer. I'd like to read it for you briefly. In this Gospel reading, says Vanier, Jesus is referring to Judas, his disciple, his bosom friend. Judas whom he had trusted. Judas whose feet he had washed. Judas who had already betrayed him. Is there anything more horrible than betrayal? Betrayal is more than separation or rejection. To betray is to use the secrets of a person's personal life, thoughts confided to a friend, and to turn against that person, to use their confided thoughts or words in order to hurt and defile them, to destroy a reputation. Poignant and powerful they are indeed. And so it says in the Gospel reading, at that moment, Satan entered into Judas. That moment is the moment when the will gives over to a decision that has been made, to act in a decisive and particular way. At that moment, the spirit of darkness pervades the scene. And so we are not surprised that in the text it says, and Judas went out, and it was night. The betrayer. We all play the Judas in our lives. Sometimes it's referred to as stabbing somebody in the back, or perhaps breaking confidences, and once broken, they can hardly be retrieved. On the other hand, sometimes we are the betrayed. Our bosom friend, with whom we eat, is the one that has hurt us most deeply. We know what it is to play the part of the betrayer, and we know what it is to be the betrayed. Holy Week is a time for the betrayer and the betrayed to be at the foot of the cross. On the cross, the one whose final words are most poignant for the betrayer and the betrayed, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. How often is that the case? And so at this Holy Week, at this low point, at this poignant moment, we are to remember that the grace of God extends to all. The compassion of God reaches into the depths of the broken heart of the betrayed. And the grace of God, in God's loving forgiveness, can reach into the depths of the heart of the betrayer. The great 20th century theologian Karl Barth pondered over whether Judas might be saved. And Barth's remarkable reflections on the fate of Judas are so relevant to us at Holy Week. He concluded, if Judas cannot be saved, nobody can be saved. For Jesus died and rose again for the sake of both the betrayed and the betrayers. Ultimately, the Holy Week story of Judas as the betrayer can extend towards Easter Sunday as a story of hope for all. This gospel ultimately lives on the dawn of the gospel of Easter Sunday, when there is hope for all. The Lord be with you.